I've known Sameera now for many years. It's been great. Yeah, she is one of the most intelligent people I've met in my life. She went to undergrad school at MIT, which as of last month is the best college in the world, period. People at MIT don't believe in these lists, except when they top the list, and then, then they want to talk about them all the time. After that, she did a PhD from Chicago, and she did a whole bunch of things related to theater, but she began her career, or she began her academic and intellectual life pursuing math, but somewhere along the line discovered that she loved theater, and since then it's been an incredible journey of discovery, of articulation, which she's done in multiple ways. First for about 10 years, when she was heading Prithvi, the iconic theater at Juhu, and their incredible calendar of activities throughout. And now, she's doing something equally and amazing and way more ambitious and audacious with Junoon. She's an old friend, she's a soulmate, she's a comrade on this journey of making India more vibrant and intellectual. And it's a great pleasure to welcome you. It's an honor to have you with us.
Thank you, Paresh. So when Paresh invited me to give this talk, I was very excited at the opportunity, and I dashed off a brief which Jasmeet asked me for, without thinking what it meant to write about it. I just said, this is what I want to talk about. And then I spent the last 10 days sort of pulling words out of my gut, trying to give voice to stuff that a lot of us in the world of theatre know, because we've been living with theatre. But stuff that we've always had great difficulty finding the right words to communicate with. So this is an attempt at that, and I hope that by the end of this I would have said something worth your while, and maybe given a couple of thoughts for you to think about. I'm not going to draw any, I'm not going to analyze and draw conclusions. I'm putting forward some propositions, and I'm putting forward things that I know and believe from experience, and I hope that I will be questioned and argued with furiously after the talk, because that's part of what makes all these things extremely interesting. I'm here to grow as much as anybody else. As Parmesh said, I actually did not start off as somebody from the world of theatre. I have some family amateur background in theatre. My grandfather used to work with the local community Tamil theatre, and we love the fact that he used to play the hero in roles. And my grandmother's father had friends in the theatre, and he used to work as a cashier in a British firm. And he used to lend his friends money to do their theatre from the cashier's box. Which, when the company found out, of course they told my grandmother's grandfather, and to pay it all back, because he was a tehsildar and well respected, they didn't make a deal out of it, they just said you have to pay it back. And to pay it back, he basically had to sell all their land. To square everything up. So that's our theatre stories from our family, and things that we always laugh about. But beyond that, we don't really have any kind of real theatre history. I'm from Calcutta, and I guess you can't escape culture when you grow up in Calcutta, whether or not you go for any shows or not. So you grow up in an environment which says the arts are to be valued. And I'm grateful for that, actually. At that time, one doesn't think about it, but today I'm really grateful for that. But nevertheless, I don't think any of this would have ever made any of us imagine that I would be sitting here today talking about theatre. Living a life in theatre and really believing in the value that it has. And that's what I'm here to try and share with you today. So I began my life in theatre at MIT in 1989. And I was an undergraduate. I was clear I was going to do a degree in mathematics. My impulse to take theatre courses came from two things. MIT had a requirement. You had to take 25% of your courses in the humanities, arts, or social sciences. The second impulse is I really didn't want to do a course where I had to open a textbook. So I said, let me do something where I don't have to open a book. Oh wow, theatre. So I took Introduction to Acting. So that's how I started. Over my years of, I'm going to read a bit because but over my years, 4 years of doing theatre at MIT. Courses, acting in college productions, directing student productions. I grew to know theatre from the inside. And what started happening is the medium started challenging me like nothing else had challenged me. It challenged me like even math didn't challenge me, and math was challenging. When my first course in MIT, they asked me to prove that 1 is equal to 1, and I almost fell out of my chair. I was like, okay, so. But what theatre asked me to do is it asked me to do multiple things at once. It asked me to analyze, it asked me to research, it asked me to connect to feelings, it asked me to see things from multiple perspectives, to understand things in context, to empathize constantly. Right? I had to empathize with fellow actors, I had to empathize with characters, right? And I had to generate empathy in the audience watching. It demanded that I work in collaboration with fellow creators, that I be open to them and build trust with them, and that I stay tuned to their rhythms. Because finally what we were going to create had to be created together. See, you can be a great actor, but if you stand up like a sore thumb on the stage, the audience is going to feel the non-correctness of that. So you have to end up being people together. The form theatre demands that of you, and that is what will make the final experience for the audience. It will make the cohesive experience. It taught me to focus in on the essential, to understand what the underlying driving forces of actions are, how conflict is created, how it's escalated, how it's calmed. And it taught me that deep communication can be simple and abstract, that it can just get to the point and it can hold a whole world of meaning in it. And all of this is essential in the world of theatre. It celebrated our human capacity for wonder and imagination and play and creativity. It celebrated my human being. Right? It didn't just challenge one part of me. It actually demanded from the entire me. And for me, it asked me to mobilize myself in my full capacity, my body, my voice, my emotions, my understanding, all of that. And it gave me a huge sense of growth. I'm talking, I'm 18, 19, 20, 21, right? And suddenly the world exploded. The world exploded by going through a process of theatre learning. What it made me very, very aware of, and I didn't have words for it at that point. The words are coming now. The words are coming as I'm trying to put these feelings into communication. But it really made me aware of the vast range of possibility that we hold as people, right? And it made me aware that I hold it, but my colleague holds it, and you hold it, and everybody else holds it, right? And it made me aware that it can be tapped. Just for fun, I'm going to show you a slide of a play that I was in at school, that arrow person. Anyone who knows me knows that I don't wear dresses and I don't like makeup very much. So you must know how much I love theatre because I'm corseted, I'm wearing a dress, and I'm wearing a wig. And this is what theatre people do for theatre, right? It has the capacity to make you do things you would never do otherwise. I'm always proud when I tell people that I studied theatre at MIT. And I'm not proud for myself, I'm actually proud of MIT. I'm deeply proud of MIT for this. Because MIT had the wisdom and the insight to see the role that the arts play in the development of human beings. And being a science university, a technology university, an engineering university, this was not an expected thing. I don't know how some of you may already know this. On 6 August 1945, in the final stages of World War II, the USA dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima. 3 days later, they dropped the bomb on Nagasaki. Right? The world had never witnessed before this scale of devastation and horror. And as we all know, they still suffer the fallout from that radiation even today. Many of the scientists involved, including Feynman, had studied at MIT. They were trained at MIT. In response, MIT's response, and I'm quoting, "After the Second World War, MIT's evaluation of general and humanistic education changed dramatically. The institute saw the need to emphasize the humanistic social stem of the engineering curriculum. During the post-war period, the School of Humanities and Social Studies, later the School of Humanities and Social Science, was established, allowing students to pursue a degree that combined engineering or science with humanities in a 60-40 ratio over 4 years. It's not a small ratio, 60-40. You're actually giving it a place of importance. You're not doing a tokenism. Alan Brody, there was a lot of student groups and stuff at MIT, but the department itself was actually set up, the theatre department was actually set up in 1988, and Alan Brody was called in, he's a playwright. he was called in to set up the department. And he actually articulates the role of theatre in MIT very clearly. He says the mission of arts in MIT, and certainly the mission of theatre at MIT, is to give engineers and scientists the experience of being in the world as artists. And this is an experience that never crossed their minds, certainly not their parents' minds. What it did was to give them a new way of thinking about themselves in their work as scientists and engineers, and giving them a whole new vocabulary of thinking about their own work. Some interesting things happened that way. It helped them to develop a tolerance for ambiguity. And the idea that the question may be more interesting than the answer was the whole new way of thinking for them. And so they began to get a whole new way of thinking about that and developing a tolerance for ambiguity to understand the uses of imagination and dreamscapes. And also the possibility that something does not have to have a use, that it can be simply beautiful. This came as a great shock to a number of our students. It gave them an expanded vocabulary for problem solving and question asking, and developed in them a taste for human excellence. I love that idea, that theatre develops in you a taste for human excellence. It's a strangely wonderful idea. You know, it's not something you would expect to necessarily hear. And I'll vouch for it, it's true. It's true from my training at MIT, it's true from my life in theatre in all these years. MIT as a university gives you a taste for excellence. When you're, I feel very privileged to have gone there, and I think other people who've been at MIT will agree with me on this, that there might be a lot of problems, but you do get a sense of always striving for excellence. But that striving is often external. When we did theatre at MIT, right, you made that also internal. When he's using the words human excellence, the word human is critical. It's not just excellence, it's human excellence. So I would like to share with you some of my favorite theatre experiences, because I think through that I might be able to give you a sense of what theatre can do for us, does for us when it's done really well. One of my favorite plays, and I think a lot of people in India's favorite plays, is a play called Charandas Chor. I don't know how many people here have seen it. A play by Habib Tanveer and his Naya Theatre. They revolutionized modern theatre in India. Habib had gone to RADA, and they started trying to train him, and he said, your training is all wrong for India, and he left. And he went to Old Vic, and he got some more training, and then he came back. And he wanted to find a contemporary modern theatre that expressed, that expressed his cultural language, his cultural space. And he ended up working with rural Chhattisgarhi actors. He's originally from Raipur. He went back, saw Nacha, picked up these actors, and the collaboration between him and the actors was an incredibly, incredibly dynamic one. And what they ended up doing was finally coming up with a form which had the freeness and the ease and the openness of the rural performance aesthetic, but also brought in the discipline and the rigor of the Western aesthetic, which is much more what we tend to see in urban areas. But however, the plays we see in urban areas are not Western. They are influenced by a certain idea of what the Western is, right? This play, Charandas Chor, was Habib's classic, and people want to see it over and over and over and over and over and over again. Habib Sahib once told me that he was sick of doing the play because that's the only play everybody was inviting all the time. But it is a fantastic play. And I was very privileged to see it when I was a kid, about 12 or 13, at the time when Habib was coming to the center of the Indian theatre stage. He was making his mark. He was new, he was fresh, and he had his most talented group of actors with him at that time. This play, it's an incredibly delightful story. It's a story of a thief who is running away from the Havaldar. It's a local village, right? He's running away from the Havaldar, and trying to hide from the Havaldar, there's a guru who's doing his, guruness with a lot of other people there. And he comes and he dives into the guru, and the guru hides him, right? And while the Havaldar is looking for him. So there you can see that's Habib Sahib playing the Havaldar, that's Charandas lying on the lap of the guru, right? And the guru, pretending it's a devotee who's he's blessing. As thanks to the guru, Charandas, being Charandas, says, the guru says, okay, now you take a vow because you're my shishya. And he says, I'll take 4 vows. And he says, I will never eat from a golden plate. I will never ride at the head of a procession. I will never marry a queen, and I will never become a king. Right? So the Guru says, very good. Now will you do something I ask you to do? And Charandas says, what is it? He said, stop telling lies. And Charandas says, but I'm a thief. He said, doesn't matter, stop telling lies. And Charandas accepts. And he becomes a thief who does not lie. It doesn't mean he stops thieving. He keeps thieving. He becomes better and better. He becomes very famous in his locality. He becomes a sort of Robin Hood, right? And you're watching this play having great fun with Charandas because he's really smart. He's really funny. He's giving the Havaldar a runaround, right? And he's being Robin Hood, right? So he's thieving from people that you think it's okay that he should thieve from, right? So your own morality is being questioned over there. Everything is fine in hunky-dory, and Charandas then says, okay, one more. I have stolen from everybody. I'm the best thief ever. One more, right? Just to prove that I'm excellent. And then I will retire. And he goes to steal from the treasury, right? He said, to prove that I'm the best thief. He goes to steal from the treasury, and he succeeds. And he goes home. And in the court, they say, who has managed this? And the mantri says, only one person could have done it, Charandas. And don't arrest him. If you tell him that I know you have stolen, come and meet me, he will come and meet you. So the queen sends a message and he comes. And the queen is completely taken. She loves this outspoken guy who's not subservient to her, who doesn't tell the truth, who doesn't lie, etc. She completely delightfully just gets taken by him. And very many things happen. And what ends up happening is she keeps wanting to gift him things and respect him. And she ends up doing every single thing that he vowed he would never do. Right? She sends a parade to bring him home. He says no. She offers him food on a golden plate. He says, I'm sorry, I can't. And then she finally tells me, I'm alone, I'm a queen. I need a partner. Will you marry me and will you be my king? Will you be king of this country? And he says, I'm really sorry, no, I can't. I would love to, but I can't. You're gorgeous, but I can't because I've taken these vows. And she says, okay, then I have one request. And he says, what? And she says, don't tell anybody we had this conversation. Right? And he looks at her and he says, I'm sorry, I've taken a vow never to tell a lie. Okay? Till this point, you are laughing. You're enjoying, right? It's amusing. At this point, the queen, right, you've been laughing. And at this point, the queen stops. And it was Fida Bai, who is probably one of the most amazing actresses I have seen in the world. Habib Saab's find from a Chhattisgarhi village. Right? Amazing actress. Just could bring out the heart of a character. And she stands there, she looks at Charandas. She takes a split second. They're sitting there. Then she gets up, walks across the podium and yells, Dwarpal! Your heart stops. You know the fun is over. You know, in that 1 second, you know the fun is over. Right? The guards come. She says, what is this man doing here? He's burst into my chamber. He's propositioning me. How dare you let him be free? Catch him, kill him. It happens like that. Right? Habib Saab's brilliance of his theatre. It's on that stage, which is the queen's bedroom. They catch him, they walk around, they come back, they've taken, the same bedroom becomes the execution chamber. He's in the middle, Govindaram, who was playing Charandas, the earlier slide I showed you. He shivers, they pick up their sword, they've got spears, all four of them. They pick it up, in unison, 1, 2, 3, bang, he falls. They don't touch him, it's completely symbolic. He yells the Guru's name, he falls. You've been laughing for 75–80% of the play. And suddenly the story comes and it hits you. Right? Amazingly powerful experience. And especially when Fida was the queen. Right? Because she really had that ability to bring that empathy out. Why am I talking about this play? I mean, I love it. But this play particularly, there's no villain. There's no good guy, bad guy. Your notion on who's the good guy, bad guy is broken. Right? The hero is a chore who you love, who might steal from you tomorrow. Right? You understand why the queen had to do what she did. You see her point of view, you see his point of view. Right? And you understand the greyness within which life functions. Habib Saab doesn't finish the play when Charandas gets killed. He continues the play, where they made a samadhi for Charandas and they celebrate the fact that he never told a lie. The play ends with that celebration, because that's the only assurance. Right? And what you've just been taken through is an amazing aesthetic experience. Right? But it has not just been aesthetic, it has challenged you, it has given you insight into so many things. And you take, I was 13 when I saw it first, and you take that insight. I'm recalling for you something I saw, I won't tell you how many years ago. So, but you take that, it does something to you. And it does something profoundly important to you. The other play that I would really like to talk about is, just as an example, is a play, another play which I adore, which is called Voluti. It's a play by a group called Jannatya Manch. This group was started by Safdar Hashmi, and it's been doing excellent work since then. They do street theatre mostly. They also do proscenium plays. They are a group who understands the power of theatre very, very well, right? And they work in very different circumstances. You can get a sense of the surroundings in which they work. You don't always have those, those barricades. You don't always have them. Sometimes the audience is just there at your feet. Voluti is probably one of the best plays on gender that I have ever seen. Right? Honestly, and I've lived abroad for a very long time, for 12 years, and I've seen plays that are feminist, etc., etc. And I don't think they got to the point in the way this play did. It has 3 vignettes, and I'm just going to tell you the first one. But again, to show you what theatre can do. The story is very simple. There's a young girl. Her mother is ill that day. Her mother works as a maid in somebody's house. She sends her daughter on that day to do her work. The owner of the house gives her some ribbons, some red ribbons. The daughter is delighted. She really, really wants to play with the red ribbons. And she comes home and she wants to wash her hair and put the ribbons in her hair, but she just doesn't get the time because she is asked to do one chore after another chore after another chore. Her brother comes home, finds his red ribbons and says, "Yeah, I have a tail for my kite." And he picks them up and she freaks out because it's her ribbons, right? And she says, "No, you can't take them." And the mother yells at her and says, "What rubbish, your brother has the right to play with them. Come on, you should share." And this little girl, this brother runs up to the terrace and is flying the kite. And this little girl goes and she's sitting there and she's praying desperately that the kite doesn't get cut, right? She's praying desperately that that ribbon comes back to her. End of the day, father has come home from work, he's been given food, she's helped her mother out, she's done all the housework, right? Everybody's gone to sleep. She gets up, steals outside. She wants to wash her hair, right? And you're sitting there watching as an audience, right? You're watching her go through this. You're watching her look at the ribbon all the time. You're watching every single block that comes her way, right? You're with her when she's, not wanting that kite to be broken. And you're saying, "Oh, finally, she's going to be able to wash her hair and wear those ribbons," right? And she puts the outside light on, and the doors open a crack, and it hurts her father's eye. And he gets up and he hears, and she gets slapped. And that's the play, right? And when I saw the play, I couldn't believe it. I said, what a way for us to understand without being told. And I will always hold by this. I do not believe theatre is good at giving messages. I believe it is good at giving you insight. I believe it is good at creating the gaps in which you will understand. And theatre well done, theatre well thought through, right? Theatre well crafted will always give you those gaps. And theatre, when it is created by people who are informed, who do research, who have worked on their empathy, who have worked on their skills, who have developed themselves as human beings, who are able to give you this, it will blow open your time and time again. And the best part is it does it joyfully. So you can watch a very serious play and yet you will have some joy and some delight inside you. It's a great celebration. It's a great celebration of who we are and what we can be. I'm not going to go into the other 2 vignettes because, I could, but we can maybe, if you have time later and you want to hear them, I'll tell you, but not right now. In theatre, the other thing that is incredibly, incredibly important, right? And like when I'm telling you what theatre can do, people will say, but why is it different from film, right? And why is it different from film? Film also tells you stories, right? Film also, a well-told story will give you gaps. A well-told story will allow you to figure things out. It won't spoon-feed you. The story that stays with you is often the one that makes you think and reflect and relive, right? The one, otherwise you've had a good time when you go, right? And if you notice this in your audience experiences, that's what happens. But Film, firstly, the way film is made, because it's in the mode of realism, you know, if you're in a room, and this is the room, then all these chairs will be there, right? In theatre, there might be 3 chairs. Theatre signifies, right, essentially. You cannot go from one scene to the next if you have 100 chairs on the room. You don't have time for a cut and another reshoot, okay? So in a play like Charandas Chor, if I just take you back to it for a second, in a play like Charandas Chor, if you notice the back, that's the set of the entire play, that platform and that tree. And it's everything, right? It's the outdoors, it's the temple, it's the Rani's bedchamber, it's the place where he's executed, it's the moneylender's house, it is everything. And the performance makes you see it. When I say performance, I mean everything, not just what the actor is doing, right? But also the lighting, the sound, everything, right? The whole paraphernalia performance, it makes you see it. You are in the temple when you're in the temple. You are outdoors right now, right? The audience joins the performer in the act of imagining, and you do it effortlessly. You don't do it thinking about it. You don't say, okay, now I'm going to imagine an outdoor space. You say, yes, I am in the outdoors. And while writing this paper, I was thinking in the West they use this word suspension of disbelief, right? But I don't think that's the correct word, because it gives importance to perceived facts, to tangible facts. And I don't think we live in tangible facts. I think the human imagination is much bigger, right? The human capacity to experience the world is much bigger. It's not tied only to the chair you're sitting in. And theatre knows that, right? The form of theatre as it has developed has come from that knowledge that human beings have. And that constantly happens. So Vovoluti, if you see the scenes in Vovoluti, right, there's nothing, right? There's absolutely nothing. But the scene I related to you, I saw it all. I saw the terrace, right? That's them on the terrace flying kites. Right? You can't see it in the photograph. You can't see it, you got to be there. You have to be in that collective act of imagining. And you will see the terrace, and you will see the room, and I will see a different terrace than you will see, because your context will tell you the terrace that you see. And my context will tell me the terrace that I see, but we will both see the terrace. Right? And we will see the room, and we will see the girl stepping outside, and we will imagine the light. It's broad daylight. You will imagine the darkness and the light, and you will know. Theatre is telling you, in the act of theatre, right? In the act of theatre well done, because you can always come and tell me that you've seen terrible theatre and you will be right. In the act of theatre well done, right? This is what human beings are able to collectively do without having a discussion beforehand, without agreeing on it. They just do it together, right? It's an amazing collaborative, collective experience. The audience makes the show as much as the actors. Right? Next time you go to a hall, do not put your mobile phone on. There's a reason we say don't, right?
Not even to live tweet.
Not even to live tweet. Because you take away focus from the show. You take away that energy. And any theatre wala will tell you, and I can only give you an example of this, right? But if you've experienced it, you know what I'm talking about. There are moments that somebody, a theatre wala waits for in the theatre, and it happens sometimes, right? And those of us who watch theatre a lot, we always wait for that moment and we celebrate, and it's the moment when you go into a zone together. In theatre, you'll be saying that you were breathing as one. That entire space will have become one. You will not be yourself separate from everybody else. And you will feel that energy, right? It's a precious, precious, precious energy. It happens in moments of magic. When Charandas died, no, when the Queen yelled Dwarapal, not when Charandas died, when the Queen yelled Dwarapal, and the audience got it together. I promise you, they get it together. There's 600 people in the hall and they get it together, right? They all hold their breath for a second together. And that creates the experience of the tension, not just what the actor is doing on stage. That is where theatre is different from film. Because it doesn't make a difference in film to the guy on screen. He's shot, editor has cut, now it's showing. He's doing something else at that moment in time. You're not creating it collectively. And because you're not responding, the audience is also more in their own space in film. Today you're building theatre halls using film seats, the worst thing you can do. You must not have theatre halls where the seats separate people from each other. Because what you're doing in a theatre hall is you're agreeing to collaborate in an act of shared energy. That's what you're agreeing to do. And the problem is that we don't have theatre architects in this country. So even if you go to the West where the fanciest chairs might be in a theatre hall, it will just be a small wooden thing at the most separating you. It will not be these plush multiplex seats because they work against the sharing of energy. In film you don't need that because it's so large, the image. Right? The image is already swallowed you. You have become small. In theatre you are big with everybody else. Right? So I'll just run you through a few audience pictures because I like them. This is a scene of audience watching the play. We used to show plays, and we will again, I hope soon, at Horniman Circle Garden, and it's really delicious to be sitting in the open air watching theatre under the stars. If Godrej is very nice and wants to do this on the Godrej campus and pay for it, we'll do it here as well. It's very delicious, huh? I promise you. We recently also ran school shows for kids. We really want, and I'll come back to this in more detail later, but this was children from a school in the St. Andrews Auditorium, and I was overwhelmed by this site. I couldn't believe it, so I just wanted to share it with you. So what have I been saying in all these stories? What am I trying to tell you? You know, words that I've been throwing around. Empathy, human connection, the ability to see multiple perspectives, celebration of human creativity and imagination, essential communication, right? What is essential? Right? Getting to the core of things. A tolerance of ambiguity. The understanding that things need not always be useful. That beauty and the wonder and aesthetic pleasure it gives us is sometimes enough. More than enough. Collective experience. Collaborative experience. The experience of being in the zone. Being one with others you don't know. Right? Celebrating human excellence. All of this. They're all good things, no? I think they're all necessary things. I don't think they're just good things. I think in today's world they're critically necessary things. Because we live in very strange times. We've just had the most weird week. And in Bombay, we've had the weirdest 10 days. Right? We watched a city, this Pal Thackeray was dying out of old age. Nobody beat him up, nobody killed him, nobody assaulted him. Right? He was old. He lived his life. Bombay, resilient Bombay, right? Who handles so many things. Shut down out of fear before he died. Shut down out of fear while he died. Shut down out of fear after he died. People didn't have milk and bread at home because they were afraid of the Shiv Sainik's emotions. Doesn't make sense. Why should mourning lead to violence? Right? And a young kid says what a lot of people were thinking and saying and posted on Facebook and posted among themselves. And she hasn't really insulted anybody here. She's just saying, why? Why should we be scared? We should mourn if we want to. Right? 21-year-old, she gets arrested by extremely vigilant cops. Right? Who don't arrest the people who go and smash the clinic of her uncle. So airing an opinion on Facebook is more dangerous than smashing the clinic. Right? Than an actual act of vandalism. I don't understand. Right? I don't know how to think about these things. I was in Delhi. I didn't feel the palpable tension that I was told was here. Right? I was living in the house of a lawyer friend and I was telling him, this makes no sense. How can this be? And he says, well, the cops probably arrested her because they were trying to protect her. For all you know, that's what they did. Because if they didn't arrest her, there might have been violence against her. And I thought, you know, I can't dismiss that. I can't dismiss that. I hate to think of it. I hate to think that's the world we're living in, but I cannot dismiss that. That could very well be the truth. You know? I don't know. Right? Then, right after that, the central government hangs Kasab. I mean, Kasab gets hanged, the president signs. And he gets hanged. And, you know, it's smart of the government to do it because it sort of gives you another big thing to talk about, which helps. Right? I don't know if that's the reason, but it was good timing in that sense. I go on Facebook, and people I know from my school, people I've grown up with, right, are celebrating and saying, finally, it's about time he was killed, etc., etc., etc. Now, I'm personally extremely ambivalent about the death penalty. Right? I don't know how to think about it. I understand, I completely am with people who say you should not take a life. right? I'm completely with people who say that, it's not our right to take a life. But when somebody has been, when you know that this is the person who has killed, they have come with intent to kill, all that stuff, I don't know how to think about it, honestly. I mean, in that sense, Javed is, I hope my friends will forgive me for stealing on their post, but anyway, mixed emotions, I can't forget, etc., etc., etc. That's a place that I come from. I understand what she's saying, right? What I find sickening is the celebration that has happened amongst many people. I cannot understand. I can understand the horror at the attack. I can understand wanting justice. But I cannot understand the celebration. It makes me think of lynch mobs. And then, I must not swear here, but Anna Hazare goes out and says we should have public hangings. And I think, what are we talking about? That's what the Taliban does, yeah? How do, Taliban also thinks they're right. They don't think they're wrong, they think they're right. And they're doing public hangings. What are we talking about? And why is the media giving so much space to this kind of language and this kind of thinking? Right? And then I go on Facebook and I see this actor Ashish Chaudhary, who lost his sister, says, why should I rejoice Kasab's death? I will rejoice when little innocent children will stop being taught to kill in the name of God and religion. I will not teach my children to rejoice anyone's death, be it Kasab. They will learn to be non-vindictive, non-fanatical, and will love all. Right? Our world is made up of all of this. The tragedy today is that this voice is not the stronger one. That many of us might be thinking this. But somehow we are not louder than the other voices. Or somehow we are not experienced as more powerful than the other voices. Right? And my question becomes, it becomes why. Right? What do we need to do? My question becomes not why as an outside why. My question becomes, if this is what I want, if I want us, this is not being stupid. Right? This is not being, you can't, like a lot of people said, you shouldn't lay over and let somebody walk over you. This is not where that is coming from. This is coming from an understanding. It happened with the World Trade Centers also, where so many victims said, just stop it. Don't continue the cycle of violence. Don't continue the cycle of hate. Some kind of empathy happened at that point. Right? What we need, this is just what happened the last 2 weeks. If you really just stop for a second and look at today's world, right? What is the world that we're living in, right? It's a world that I think demands that we keep faith, that we believe in the best of human beings, that we believe in our capacity to be amazing, right? That whether or not we experience it on a daily basis, we believe it and we keep faith in it. Because what is it? We live in global circumstances, right? We move with jobs, we move with opportunity. We move because we don't have jobs. Home is no longer a stable place, right? Home is no longer in one place. When we leave home, we've changed too much for the people at home. We've changed too little for the people we move to, right? You are no longer safe amongst people you always grew up with. You're no longer amongst people whose language, culture, way of being, etc. you automatically understand, right? That's all broken down, right? Recently I've started wondering at my use of words like broken down because it makes it sound like a tragedy, right? And the thing is, that's the reality. I don't even want to take a stance on whether that's tragedy or not. That is what has happened. That's the world we're living in. I can show you this stuff from Facebook because we are living in that world, and I can, but this is also the reality of the world that we're living in. The point is, right, that the world is constantly throwing us against difference. It's constantly throwing us against newness. It's constantly making us deal with something that we do not know automatically how to deal with, right? And I think we have two choices. Choice one, which I have seen people do as an automatic choice without thinking over and over again. It happens, as you know, when you go to universities abroad where everybody falls into their own cliques. You look for familiarity. You want McDonald's to be the same everywhere, right? You try to build little zones of surety and comfort and stability, and I personally think those are very fragile zones, right? Because they are collapsing in on yourself, and because they're fragile, they break, and when they break, you get angry and upset and frustrated and violent, right? is another choice, right? And the other choice is to embrace this. To say, this is the world. And this is the demands of this world. And the demands of this world is perhaps we stop being afraid of difference, and perhaps we start seeing difference as an opportunity of growth, right? Perhaps we see newness as an adventure. Right? Perhaps we equip ourselves so that when we face constant newness and we face constant difference, we actually embrace that as the naturalness of the world that we live in today. But we are not equipped right now because we've just gone through a century and a half or 2 centuries of being equipped for a different world, right? And being compartmentalized. You know, we got compartmentalized not only in our nations but also in our jobs. You know, today what's so interesting, what's happening automatically is boundaries are breaking down. You know, what does the India Culture Lab do? It brings your stuff across. Because we are understanding that those models don't work anymore. But are we understanding that in ourselves? Right? Because finally we are the actors. Right? No, there's no robot running the world yet. Right? Finally we are the people whose collective decisions are going to make the difference. Can the collective decisions be more humane? Can we move into imagining a world where more of us are equipped to function in humane ways? Where we are equipped to give vent and give voice and to give action to our human possibility. Because for me, I'm not coming from a moral plane, I'm saying we are not equipped. Today's world is equipping us for actually hitting out in rage. And there are enough people who will use that for their own power. And that is being validated. How can we validate this other way of being? And how can we create an environment to nurture that? Right? And here is where I really, really, really believe, and know actually, that there are many ways. I'm not saying theatre is the answer. And I will never say that you do theatre, you become a wonderful human being. There are many of us who do theatre who are not wonderful human beings. Right? Because we can compartmentalize and we can learn empathy for the character and then not practice it in life. Somewhere you have to make your own choice about whether you apply these things in life or not. Right? But Junoon comes out of the understanding and the experience that if you go through the processes of theatre, right? I'm using theatre because that's where I come from, but a lot of the allied arts, performing arts, give you one or the other of these. Theatre is very multidisciplinary, so it manages to encompass a lot of this. Some of them will give you things in more depth, right? But lesser things in more depth. But it's really, really important that we have a world where you access this celebration of the human spirit, this openness, this ambiguity, this ability to come together collectively and be together without knowing each other. It's really important that you have a world where that is validated over and over and over and over again. And the best part is it's fun in theatre. It's not even hard work. It is hard work, but it's fun, so you don't know it's hard work. Okay? So, which brings me to Junoon. Right? It's why we started Junoon. We started Junoon because we're jealous of other countries who have all this stuff. No, that's one reason. But I promise you, you go to London, and there are pictures on the tube, and they're all performance. And every person who grows up in London has lived with performance. And it does something to, it doesn't mean the British are always right. They're often very wrong, but that doesn't matter. The point is, there is something that those human beings get, right? And the government backs them hugely, right? The Arts Council has cut funds and it still funds beyond what we can imagine. Germany has even more funds for the arts beyond what we can imagine. Not just funds, but infrastructure, management, all the support structures that you need for the artist to flourish and to bring this magic into your world, right? The US is a different model. The US does not do any straight government funding, but it has policies where if you support in your community, you get a tax break. I think the US does this for sports and stuff also, which is a good model. And for me, actually, that's the model which I think makes more sense in India. I don't see the government, I actually don't want the government to do it here. So, but if they would come up with that kind of a policy, that would encourage, I think, giving and participating. Brazil, okay, so US, UK, those countries have it all. Not anymore, but that's our notion. Then you have Brazil, right? In 1940, this is a funny story. In 1940, 42 or something, the World War II, right? Nazis fleeing because they're losing, so maybe it's a little later in the 40s. communists fleeing because they're being beaten up, they're all going to Latin America, right? Latin America is saying, oh my God, what's going to happen to our world? We've got Nazis coming and communists coming, and we are terrified of what's going to happen to our world, right? We don't want revolution, okay? I think it's a very ironic story. But anyway, what they do, which is wonderful, is they say that commerce, business, right, gets together with the government and says, we will give 2% of our employee payroll towards an autonomous institution, which will be a cultural organization for arts and sports. Right? It's called something in Portuguese that I can't say, but it's SESC. They take existing spaces and transform them, they build new spaces. They have across Sao Paulo alone 19 centers. The employees of the corporates who pay that money get in free, others pay a nominal price. They have access to libraries, they have access to sports facilities, they have access to theatre, they have access to music, they have access to world performance. Because 2% of the employee payroll is enough, right? Who runs these organizations? Social scientists, right? On the top levels, people who have made it their job to work with society, to understand society, to make friends with society, right? To balance society. If Brazil can do it, it's not it's not the usual like, it's Brazil, come on, right? Anyway, big dreams. The point remains, in India, you have a situation where you have much more diversity and quantity of arts and culture than any country. Right? I don't think I'm wrong. I don't have numbers, right? But this country is mad. It changes culture, language, food, clothes every 100 kilometers, literally. Right? You don't have to be in a cosmopolitan. You just walk from one village to another and you will see the change. Right? It has performance forms that are over 2,000 years old. It has performance forms that were born yesterday. It is thought about performance. It has got a Natya Shastra. The Natya Shastra is an amazing text. It has theorized performance. It has thought about what happens in performance. It has codified it. Right? It has thought about sound like no other culture has. Right? The kind of chanting that happens, which we associate with religion, right? We associate yoga with religion. I'm not sure that that's a necessary association. The kind of exploration of the possibilities of the body and sound that our culture has done is mind-blowing, and it comes up time and again in our performance forms, right? You have this rich, and something is weird about performance. People do it nevertheless. I mean, they do it in spite of. They just want to do it, they do it. You meet a theatre runner who is not proud of somehow managing to do theatre, you show that person to me, I don't think you'll find that person. Okay? They great pride that we will do it. It doesn't matter what the odds are. Right? So it's weird, right? You have thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people across this country who perform. You have thousands and 10,000s and 1 lakhs of amateurs who also perform. Right? And they put all their hard-earned money and don't give food to their families and put it in theatre and sell all the land like my great-great-great-grandfather, okay? But it happens. I mean, there's something weird about this, and I think it is to do with the fact of how we feel, how we understand what it does for us collectively as human beings, right? So you have this. You have people who I believe would like to see, right? You have enough, 1 billion people in India, you have enough audience. They don't all have to be audience, there's enough audience. What you don't have is any connecting infrastructure. You don't have a hall in your neighborhood, unless you live in Junoon or Warsaw, right? Prithvi is not enough. It's a small hall. It can only do so much. It's doing its best. But it's one hall in a city of God knows how many people, in one area, right? Why Prithvi? There are other halls, but why Prithvi? Why is Prithvi important? Because Sanjana, in her 25 years of running it, what she brought to the table was a deep understanding of what theatre needed. And because she brought that understanding and kept it first, always, Prithvi nurtured. Her mother before her nurtured. Right? You have halls in this country. Maharashtra and Bengal have halls. Right? They're both states who like theatre. So they went and built these big halls. And then they thought the building could run itself. So there is no training. The people who run the halls are clerks and bureaucrats. They don't understand what the arts is. There's no sense. When SESC was set up, the first thing they did is they sent people to Europe, because Europe had a culture of arts organizations, and they sent them there and said, learn what it means to run an arts organization. Right? We have not done this in India. So you have halls, but the management kills it. theatre which needs to live for 2-3 days. Right? Play grows because it's live, it grows. You learn from your last performance, you build it into your next. You change things. Right? Abroad, the run is 6 weeks. Right? If the play does badly, it will close in 4 or 3. Here the run is 2 days. How can we have, I mean, the fact that we have quality is amazing. Because the system is not helping us. So the system is not helping you as audience either get what is possible because the potential is there. And the system is not allowing, right now the way it is not letting children grow up with this in their lives. Right? It's not feeding you the strengths of all these things. You know, the stuff that blew my mind at MIT. It's not feeding that to us. I had to go to MIT to get that. Right? Why should I have to go to MIT? And Junoon comes from that. We're not government, we don't have those kind of funds. We're only a small group of people, so we're not imagining that we will bring theatre to your doorstep, everybody's doorstep. We are imagining that we would like to create multiple platforms, right? We would like to pilot. We would like to, over a certain number of years, create models that are adaptable. And I use the word adaptable because it's cultural finally. So you have to articulate at all times what it is you're trying to do. You can't just copy. Right? If you want the ambience to be good, what makes these people feel good? What is different from what makes those people feel good? Right? So we are committed to creating and sharing that knowledge, right? And experimenting. What we have is a network of artists. Sanda's here, she's one of us, who are committed to doing this because we all know what we can do. We all know what we are capable of. We just need the circumstances. And what we are trying to do as Junoon is create those circumstances. Because we think all of us are going to benefit from that. Very quickly, am I out of time? I have like 2, 3, 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes. So with Junoon, we're working in 3 ways. I'm quickly just going to go through it and you can ask me specific questions. And I have a very nice website which I've forgotten to put up, junoontheatre.org. And we are on Facebook, facebook.com/JunoonTheatre, twitter.com/JunoonTheatre, very simple. So you can find us, please, if you're interested in what we're doing. We're working in 3 ways, right? One extreme is the workshops, right? Something we set up, Sanjana set up at Prithvi about 20-something years ago, way before anybody thought arts workshops. She set it up instinctively as process workshops. You don't teach skills, you don't take plays. You take people through the process of theatre. We've done it with children. It's grown from 4 workshops to last year we did about 40 across 5 venues in Bombay. This program, which was summertime at Prithvi, is now with us, Arts at Play. We continue working with the same people and adding more on. It's magical to watch what happens to children in these workshops. I had a parent, I have many stories, but one story I'll tell you, because this gentleman came to me after a workshop and said, "Thank you so much." And I said, "Yeah, I didn't do anything, the conductor took the work." He said, "No, you don't understand, I'm an incredibly shy man. And my son is incredibly shy. You know, he's like me. And in school I did debating and all this stuff and I got over my shyness. But my son has been here for 7 days. And I came on the last day, and we don't do like proper presentations. We tell parents, don't wait, performance is not the point. Just see, just feel, just experience your child over this time, and you will know, right?" And he said, sitting there and watching my son come out and explain something about the workshop to me in his own words. And he did it so easily. He did it with no self-consciousness, right? It was just normal for him to do that. He said, "The fact that you have given that to my child, see, that's what theatre can do. It can center you." Right? Now parents are shouting at us and saying, "This is not fair, you're only giving it to our children." So we are trying to find venues who will work with us, because we don't keep these very high commercially, okay? We don't want it to become a very elite thing. People have to pay, but you want people to be able to pay. And then we build in a 20%, 20% of them we work with people to subsidize people who really can't afford to pay very much. But this is critical. The sharing of the theatre process with people is incredibly critical. The theatre gives us a joyful way of developing our human capacity. It brings strangers together. It gives us the powerful experience of human connectedness, of being one. It celebrates us and our being completely, right? It develops empathy. What we are proposing as Junoon is let theatre be a rehearsal for the stage of life, right? And we at Junoon are committed to creating the conditions to enable this. But for it to happen, we need collaboration, we need participation, we need you to be audiences. We need you to be connected to us and come forward, because this is not a government giving infrastructure. It has to be done. If we don't want to wait, we have to do it. And that's what we're trying to do. Thank you.
What is your view on the TV, the role of TV channels in trying to promote something which I consider as absurdity in the name of art and theatre? Three people sit who don't have any idea about what art and theatre is, and they are judging our art forms like Gopipua dance from Odisha, and they ridicule them. And what is your view on this? Is it, in a way, promoting? At least it brings awareness amongst people, but at the same time, I think you can opine on this.
Okay.
I think you at least know that this other stuff exists, right? You know that.
But I just, we are so scared of the advertisers. We are so scared that if we don't do something which is a sure hit, that we don't trust our public, and we should, because the public watches Kaun Banega Crorepati, which is a completely content-based show, and really watches it, right? So we should trust our public, but we don't. And so we try to say, let's go lowest common denominator, and let's make sure everything is safe. And I don't know, I just think we're living a huge lack of courage. And I don't know, I cannot believe that advertisers don't have the guts to take chances. I cannot believe it. I think we don't have the guts to ask them. Maybe there's some who won't, but maybe there's some who will. And we are caught, so the fear of money is making a lot of these decisions. I don't even think it's content driven, my sense. If it was content, then you do Satyam Jayate because Amir Khan is there. It's great that Amir Khan does it, but that's your safety. It's Amir Khan doing it. I don't know.
My question was, why doesn't the theatre adapt to the changes in the crowd, as in the public set? But as it is visible in the movies, you can see the old movies coming up with, where women were showed very household women, and now new age women are heroines are very inspiring and stuff. Still, but in theatres you see. In theatres you see the women's are always the housewives, the kids are always flying kites, as you said. And why don't they change? Is it not affecting the crowd? It is not stopping the crowd from coming to watch the theatres. Or is it not commercially not helping the theatre probably that way?
Are you talking about commercial Marathi theatre, or are you talking about theatre in general?
I have watched 3 theatre plays till date, and one was in Tamil, which was totally absurd. That was one major reason I actually thought I'd never go and watch a theatre.
Oh, don't say like that. Go see Stories in a Song, very good play. You'll watch theatre then.
And the two others, I have studied in SPC, and so we had this whole bunch of cultural activities happening around. 2 other theatres which are not really impressive that way. The housewife story and all. So. Why doesn't it appeal the youth?
But the point is that if you're exposed to only commercial theatre, then you begin to understand.
No, but there are 2 things, right? 2 things. I think you're right. The theatre that you're going to come across more easily is going to be theatre that is status quo and not, theatre in Bombay especially is very influenced by TV serials. And that doesn't help because TV serials do that. But there is enough theatre which doesn't fall into those stereotypes, which challenges them, which makes you think differently. And a lot of the younger groups at PIFI would be doing that. There are places across this country also where people are doing that, but you're right, the number is smaller. I think if the circumstances of theatre were more stable, if people knew they could get shows, if they had confidence they could get audiences, they would take more risks. It's part of the infrastructure problem. It's part of the problem of not being sure. In other countries where you know that there's a neighborhood theatre where you can go and try your ideas out, you'll do it because you know that you'll at least have a life. Here people are scared of not having a life.
And what is the reason why Bollywood, for some case, is not promoting theatre? Or though the artists in Bollywood might be coming from theatres, why are they not promoting theatres? Is there any specific reason? Is there competition? What kind of
competition? No, they get all the good character actors from theatre.
Yeah. So do they consider theatre as a competition? Tomorrow.
I don't think so. I don't think.
They're not financially. They're not commercial.
Say Hollywood stars doing theatre and it's a draw.
No, it's only recently. It's only recently even Hollywood stars are doing theatre because they're sort of testing to see if they're real actors or not. So, No, seriously, because theatre is more scary, right? There's no cut and take and all of that stuff. I don't know how to answer that question. I don't know how to answer. I think it has to do with the larger sense of not being.
There are a couple of actors, like I've seen things by Nasir. There are guys.
Hey, but Nasir is a theatre wala who does movies. He's not a movie guy who does theatre, right? I mean, he's made that very clear in his life that he does movies, but theatre is where he is. So, but there's very few people like Om Puri started in theatre. Amrish Puri, what's his name, Amar Palekar, all of them. Yeah, and they didn't go back to theatre. Very few people. I don't want to. The circumstances are so difficult, and movies and ads give you so much money, right? Here's what I tend to see the trajectory. I will do a few movies and ads so that I make enough money so I can do theatre. I'm doing well in movies and ads. I got one more offer. I'll take one more offer and I'll also do theatre. I'll take one more offer and suddenly I have no time. And if you do serials, forget it, because serials eat up your life. So a lot of it is just the way things are. It sort of sucks people out whether or not they want to do it.
When it comes to this, it's about money also.
Yes.
I mean, in my business, which is visual art, it's also about money, and the quality of the work is valued in box office for movies. But how is it valued in theatre? How would you?
See,
do you understand what I mean?
I understand your question.
For me, for instance, a work of art, if it's like a $120 million Picasso or a $20 million Picasso, or if it's a fake one, or if it's a postcard, it's still the same image, kind of, although, the original work has its, yeah.
I really think if you don't get to see something enough, and you don't get to know it enough, you can't value it. I mean, it's just, for me, it's a question of, it's the bridges that we want to connect. If you talk to somebody who watches Marathi theatre, and who watches it constantly, right, they might hate what's happening on stage right now, but there is a certain value they have for theatre. If you talk to someone in Bengal, that same value will be there, but you talk to somebody in Bombay who doesn't watch Marathi theatre, they don't even know what it is. So you're actually not even getting to the place of how do you value it. You're first saying, do I know of its existence? Have I experienced it? And only then can you get to talk about value. So we are actually living in these strange, very strange circumstances.
The issue that I'd like to ask you a question about is, I found it very interesting. It's the issue of the hanging of Kasab. It's quite a paradox, because if you hang him, then you think it's too severe a punishment. But if you don't, you think he's been given another chance, which a lot of survivors and their families have.
Okay, my opinion is purely personal, right? Okay, I'm not informed, whatever. But look, when Kasab came, right? I don't even know how to think about giving him another chance, because they all came knowing they were going to die. I mean, for me, I think Kasab's worst time has been these 4 years, because he was supposed to be dead and in paradise. And he wasn't. He was in some Indian jails with people who hated him. So I don't know what is bigger torture. I'm not somebody who necessarily thinks death is the worst thing. Do I think that we have a right to decide somebody else's death? That's difficult. I don't think so in general. And then I don't know how to think when somebody has been, they have gone and killed innocent people. I don't have an example here, I do have an example from film, is the film Judgment at Nuremberg, which always really deals with the post-World War II, the Nazi war criminals trial, and the questioning of the actions that happened and what is the right justice for them. And I don't know in a situation like this. I mean, I don't believe that everybody wants the same thing, and really in a situation like Kasab, where you have these young guys who are brainwashed and bribed into thinking that they're giving up their lives for their nation will not only send them to paradise, but will also take care of their families, because they come from difficult backgrounds, right? I don't know what is is death really the worst thing? I don't know.